The Gold Coast just pulled off something that no one expected. It became one of the only regions in Australia where houses are growing faster than most capital cities. And that's even after pushing deep into the $1 million medians. But here's what almost nobody is talking about. The conditions that created that boom are starting to come apart, and a completely different set of suburbs are beginning to emerge. Because the data right now makes absolutely no sense on the surface. You've got suburbs where the median house price sits between $1.5 to $2 million. Vacancy rates are as low as 0.4%. Yields are hovering between 4 and 4.5%, and stock on market is so tight that it barely even registers. And that combination, it simply just shouldn't exist this late into the cycle. Not at these prices, and not after the last few years of growth. So the real question isn't whether the Gold Coast is still booming. It's why hasn't it slowed down? And who's gonna get caught when it finally does? Guys, in this video, I'm gonna walk you through the 5 suburbs where demand is still so strong that prices are barely flinching. The one suburb that looks absolutely bulletproof but has a micro risk that almost everyone's gonna miss. And the reasons why the Gold Coast has defied even its own affordability models for 5 straight years in a row. And once you see suburb number 4, the one with a 0.4% vacancy rate and sub 1% stock on market, you'll understand exactly why this phase of the market won't look anything like the last one. Guys, my name's Josh. I'm from DataEdge Property, and I help everyday Australians navigate the Australian property market using data. Data that's accessible to absolutely everyone. And if you get value out of today's video, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe so you can continue receiving data-driven updates just like this. With that said, let's dive straight into Gold Coast 101 and how it's performed in recent years. So the Gold Coast, it isn't the affordable lifestyle play that most people would remember. This is a market where a lot of high quality suburbs now sit between $1.5 to $2 million in price. And yet at the same time, demand hasn't softened the way that most analysts have predicted that it would by now. And the reason for that is simple. Supply hasn't grown, but migration, lifestyle flows, and owner-occupied demand have kept strengthening over that time. Across the suburbs that we're about to cover, stock on market is at anemic levels. Vacancy rates sit between 0.4% and 2.5%, and long-term growth in these markets has hovered between 8 and 10% per year. And with 10-year growth rates that high, you're not buying early into the cycle anymore. You're buying into a market that has already proven itself. So the only suburbs that make sense right now are the ones that have genuine scarcity, strong owner-occupier control, and rental markets tight enough to create a natural price floor. And the suburb that shows this clearer than anywhere else is Hope Island, but not for the reasons that most people would expect. You see, Hope Island is the suburb that sets the tone for the northern Gold Coast. You've got premium estates, golf courses, waterways, and a high-income demographic that's incredibly stable. The median price currently sits at $1.58 million. Yields, surprisingly, are coming in at 4.4%, which is relatively high for the point of the cycle that we're currently at. Vacancy rates are at 2.9%. Now that's a little bit higher than what I would typically want them to be, noting that 3% is what we would consider to be a balanced market. Stock on market at 2.3%. Also not overly low, but not high either. And long-term growth has been at 8.2% over the last 10 years. So well above the national average. So again, this isn't a market where investors are entering thinking that they're early into the cycle. But what matters isn't the raw numbers, it's the behavior behind them. A suburb that's this premium normally shouldn't produce yields this high unless something very specific is happening. Tenants are clearly stretching to secure lifestyle housing. And that means that demand here is emotional, not purely financial. And this next part is what most people miss about Hope Island. You see, Hope Island, it behaves like a price anchor for the northern coast. Everything around it re-rates off its ceiling. The money here, it's sticky. Owners don't panic sell, and buyers don't lowball. But at the same time, that 2.9% vacancy rate, it should wake people up. It's a reminder that premium suburbs wobble at the edges when sentiment dips. You don't necessarily buy Hope Island for its upside, you buy it for its stability that it's proven over several years with its extremely strong owner-occupied demand. And if Hope Island is the polished anchor, well, the real quiet powerhouse is just next door. But before we jump into that, guys, if you're serious about using data to build real wealth through property, don't just watch from the sideline. Join my completely free DataEdge Property Community on Facebook. I share suburb breakdowns, charts, and share plenty of content before it ever hits YouTube. And you get direct access to me on there, and you can ask me any question you like. If you're interested, check out the link in the description below. With that said, let's jump into suburb number 2, which is Holywell. Holywell is one of the Gold Coast's most underrated performers, and the data proves it. The median price in Holywell sits at $1.6 million, yields relatively strong at 4%, vacancy rates pretty low at 1.4%, so it's a very tight market if you're a renter. Stock on market at just 1.5%, and the long-term growth rate definitely exceeds the long-run average, sitting at 9.9% a year. Now, I'm not going to be one of those spruikers that's going to tell you that that long run average is a good thing. It's not a good thing because over the very long run, over 20, 30-year periods, suburbs tend to mean revert, meaning that they begin to revert back to the national average of between 5 to 6%. So the fact that it has outperformed the national average over the last 10 years is going to place downwards pressure on prices over the future period. But here's the insight that most people miss. Demand in Holywell, it isn't dominated by one particular buyer group. Instead, it's layered. You've got downsizers chasing the Broadwater, families trading up from Labrador or Runaway Bay, and long-term locals who won't leave the corridor. And when a suburb has multiple buyer segments supporting it, it becomes incredibly stable. In addition to that, Holywell hasn't undertaken a modernization yet, which is actually one of its biggest strengths. You see, older homes mean renovation-driven upside. The market isn't fully priced in yet. And because it's quieter and less branded than Hope Island or Paradise Point, prices here grow in deliberate steps rather than through speculative spikes. Holywell is a classic zero drama, slow compounding suburb. And those are usually the ones that outperform everything around them over the course of a decade. But the most misunderstood suburb on the list is still ahead. And guys, if you want to learn how to assess individual properties, not just the big picture market, make sure you grab my completely free property due diligence checklist in the description box down below. It walks you through land quality, zoning, and tenant demand so you don't end up buying the wrong property in the right market. And just a quick heads up, the data tells me that over 90% of you who watch these videos aren't subscribed. So if you find this kind of breakdown useful, make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss out on more videos like this coming out soon. With that said, let's jump into suburb number 3, which is Runaway Bay. You see, Runaway Bay is one of the most misunderstood suburbs on the entire Gold Coast. Its median price is around $1.9 million, yields sit at around 4%, vacancies are at 1.4%, stock on market in the low 1%, and long-term growth clocks in at 9.9%. And here's the part that really surprised me when I dug into the numbers. You see, Runaway Bay is a canal suburb that doesn't behave like a canal suburb. Usually, lifestyle suburbs, they boom during good periods and they soften sharply when sentiment dips. Runaway Bay, on the other hand, historically hasn't done that. And that's because it's supported by mixed cycle demand. You got families, lifestyle buyers, and long-term locals that continue to prop up demand throughout the cycles. And this is incredibly rare. It means that the suburb never relies on just one demand engine to fuel its future growth. Because when lifestyle buyers inevitably slow down, families keep moving in. When families stop moving in, lifestyle buyers return. So you've always got demand coming into it from future pools of buyers. And that dual engine demand is exactly why Runaway Bay compounds so cleanly over the years. And even the slightly longer days on market, sitting at around 66 days, they're actually not a bad sign because it shows that this suburb doesn't overshoot. It doesn't attract panic buyers who are just getting in because of FOMO. Instead, it sells at fair value, consistently. At the end of the day, Runaway Bay is the definition of boring is good. And boring, it usually wins. But none of this competes with what's happening in the next suburb. The data there is honestly wild. But before we jump into suburb number 4, guys, I want to know from you, if you had $1.5 million to invest today, would you spend it in the Gold Coast, Perth, or Brisbane? Drop your thoughts in the comment section down below. I read every single comment and endeavor to respond to as many of you as I can. With that said, let's jump into Eleanora, and that's where the data gets borderline ridiculous. You've got a median price of about $1.5 million, yield slightly lower at 3.3%, but vacancy rates are virtually non-existent at 0.4%. So if you're a renter in this suburb, I really feel bad for you. Stock on market sits at 0.78%, meaning there's virtually nothing on the market, and its long-term growth rate is pretty similar to the other suburbs at about 10%. You see, suburbs, they simply do not behave like this unless they are under extreme structural pressure. And this is the point where most buyers underestimate how powerful owner-occupier control truly is. You see, only 20% of Eleanora's suburb base is renters. And that means that owner-occupiers completely dominate price behavior. And we know that the vast majority of owner-occupiers, they don't panic sell. They don't care about short-term yield. They don't dump properties when interest rates rise. They anchor price. And when vacancy rates collapse that low and stock on market drops under 1%, you've got a suburb with a permanent price floor. And these types of fundamentals, they literally force the market to hold value even during downturns. And that's exactly why Eleanora barely moves during soft patches. There's no land, no turnover, and demand from families that only intensifies over time. This is one of the cleanest suburbs I'm seeing from a risk perspective along the entire Gold Coast. But with that said, the final suburb, it has one fundamental that makes it incredible, and one that can catch you off guard. But before we jump into the last suburb, guys, if you want to see the real reason why so many Australian property investors fall behind without even realizing it, make sure you watch my breakdown of the 5 biggest mistakes that investors make. It's on screen now and in the description box down below if you're interested, and it'll change how you think about the entire game. With that said, let's get into the last suburb in the Gold Coast that I'd be looking into, and that's Reedy Creek. You see, Reedy Creek is the southern Gold Coast's big block upgrader suburb. It's got a median value of around $1.5 million, yields at just a touch below 4%, vacancy rates super tight at 0.4%, stock on market under 1%, and a long-term growth rate of about 9%. And everything about this suburb, it screams consistency. Families stay here for the schools, space, safety, and block size. They generally don't leave unless they outgrow the house, and that creates long-term price stability. But this is the part that you absolutely need to understand before you buy here. Reedy Creek's hills are a physical filtering mechanism. And that makes some pockets incredibly desirable and others far less liquid. And steep blocks mean more drainage, more retaining, more site costs, and ultimately a smaller future buyer pool if you choose the wrong pocket. Now, this isn't a deal breaker. It just means that asset selection here matters much more than anywhere else on the list. Get the pocket right, on the other hand, and you own one of the strongest compounding family corridors along the Gold Coast. So guys, with all of that said, I haven't given you the flashiest suburbs, not the cheapest, but the ones where the underlying demand is so strong that it actually overrides the headline prices. And honestly, that's the part that most people miss. The Gold Coast, it isn't booming anymore, it's filtering. And the smart money, it flows into the areas with natural scarcity. Meanwhile, everyone else ends up buying someone else's problem. And look, I'm not pretending like I have all of the answers. I'm literally just some guy on the internet who enjoys analyzing this stuff more than he probably should. Remember, none of this is financial advice, and please speak to someone who understands your individual circumstances before you act on anything. Guys, if you enjoyed this breakdown, a like and subscribe genuinely helps the channel out, and tell me in the comments which Gold Coast suburb you think will actually outperform over the next few years. I really appreciate you staying right until the very end of the video. I really hope you got value out of it, and I'll see you in the next one.